Hello and welcome to SaaS Marketing Insights, the show where we ask SaaS founders, CEOs, marketers, and investors about the lessons they've learned in their quest to grow their companies. My name is Paul Stevenson, and I'm founder and CEO of SaaS marketing agency 47 Insights. On today's show, I have an interview with Chen, co-founder at PickFu. Hope you enjoy it. Chen, co-founder of PickFu. Welcome to SaaS Marketing Insights.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so I came across you at MicroConf. We didn't meet at MicroConf, but I was intrigued by what PickFu is and what it does. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So PickFu is a crowdsourced polling platform that helps businesses make better decisions. So you might be an author who's looking to test your book titles or book covers, a mobile app developer looking to optimize your app icons or your app store screenshots, or an e-commerce seller who's looking to test out the product variations before you order them, or optimize your product listing on Amazon, testing out those descriptions and the photos. So it's kind of good for anything that you're going to publish live that you can't test live. So there's a lot of good tools for testing live things like Optimizely and all those. But this is a really good way to get data before you publish it and make a concrete decision. So the main benefit is that we bring the respondent. So within 15 minutes, we can get you 50 responses with written explanations and demographic information. And that's all data that you can use to make a more informed decision as you're about to publish something.
That sounds great. And as a marketer, I can think of 100 uses for that.
Totally.
So you mentioned a number of different use cases there. Basically, people wanting to get some feedback. I guess it's qualitative feedback as opposed to quantitative, or is it?
Yeah, so it's both, right? Our base poll is having people choose between two things, and that's kind of how we started. So kind of an A or B. We added the option to do up to 8 options, but basically it's like, oh, which one do you like, right? Like I have 2 book cover variations. Which book would you buy? And so we give you that quantitative like breakdown of which one won, A or B. But then there's all those written explanations that give you really interesting insights into why they said A or B. Maybe something was offensive, maybe something triggered something positive. And we've definitely found that it's the explanations that are typically the most valuable part of the poll results, because it helps you figure out like, oh, here's how I should iterate it on the next version. Or, we definitely don't want that association, right? Like they're saying something that we definitely don't want. So even though it might have won, like we're going to go with the other one, right? So the qualitative explanations are super important to the results.
Yeah, it's those little nuggets of gold, those little insights that you get.
Totally.
The way people explain things, rationalize things about their choices. That's worth a lot to me.
Yeah.
So how long has PickFu been going?
So code was first written a long time ago, actually. I think we first built it as a side project in 2008 while we were building another business that we run. And we built it just out of a need to make a decision on something. We had two variations of it, and we're both engineers. So we're like, let's just build an entire service around it and scratch that itch. And so we first launched it in 2008, really MVP, threw it up on Hacker News. It got some love there. The DuckDuckGo founder, Gabriel Weinberg, wrote a blog post about it, and he really loved it. And so it kind of had some traction from the get-go in that startup community. We left it alone for a really long time as we continued to build our other business. And I would say probably 4 or 5 years ago, we started pivoting our attention back to it because the whole lean startup movement started getting popularizing, validating things with data. And so people just, they wanted to get feedback on things. And they were turning to PickFu to get startup idea validation. And so we started marketing it a lot more. We took Patrick McKenzie's advice and we doubled the price a few times. And, that was helpful. And then we started marketing into specific segments because we found that it's a very general purpose tool, and it's really hard to market something that you're not sure that you need and something that can do kind of anything. So that's kind of led us down the segmented marketing approach that we kind of have today.
Great. Okay. I'm very interested in hearing more about that approach. So at what point, so you developed this, scratch your own itch, develop this tool. At what point did you monetize it?
It was always immediately monetized.
Right. Okay.
Because we pay our respondents, so we didn't want to obviously lose money on just giving it out for free. So there was always a cost to the polls. The subscription plans didn't come till much later, and probably one or two market comps into it or something, when everyone was talking about SaaS. So the pricing has definitely evolved a lot as we've engaged with the startup and SaaS community around it. But yeah, from day one, there was always like a nominal cost, and it's obviously increased since then.
So you changed from a kind of ad hoc pricing model to a SaaS pricing model at some point.
So it's kind of a hybrid of both, and it's kind of difficult because it's definitely not a traditional SaaS business. No. We still have pricing per poll, and that's necessary because like polls can vary widely in their scope. I mean, you might do 50 responses or 500 responses. It could be general audience, or you may be targeting mobile gamers with a certain app store spend. And each of those factors can vary the cost of the poll. So there's most likely never going to be just a plan where like you can just do any kind of polling you want because of those increased costs that we have to pay our respondents. But we do have subscription plans that enable features, give discounts on the polls and things like that. And that's typically for our people that are larger businesses and they have a lot of repeat polling needs. So we definitely recognize that it's not a ongoing need for many individuals or smaller businesses, and we kind of know that the churn will happen, and kind of just embrace that the usage is spiky, and we just need to keep engaging with our customers to bring them back and remind them that, you know, this is the tool that they can use for their polling purposes.
Yeah, I was wondering, and I was going to ask you about your churn rates. I wasn't going to ask you in a Nathan Latka kind of tell us what your percentages are way, but I was curious and thought that, yeah, churn would probably be an issue for you guys. But tell me a bit more about the marketing segments, because I'm really interested in you know, what use cases you've found that are working for it, and how you're marketing to those different verticals.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So like I said before, we started in the startup community, which was great. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to market to entrepreneurs. I think the difficult part about that segment was that very lean startups like ourselves are a little bit cheaper, a little stingier on the budget. So that was kind of a difficult thing, but we continue to market to them because, you know, we have that's who we are, and there's still a great use case for that. So we still have a lot of startup businesses that are validating ideas or just, you know, testing logos and all that kind of stuff. But our first segment was the author community, so the self-publishing author community, who don't typically have like a publishing house behind them, right? So they're gonna publish a book on Amazon or something like that, but they want to get feedback on their titles and covers. So that's where it fit in perfectly, and we kind of fell into that when some marketing influencers started recommending PickFu for testing their book titles and book covers, and we're like, oh, this is obviously a perfect use case. And what's great about it is it's so tangible and like so specific, especially for authors. Like, oh, okay, of course, like I've got 5 book titles and I need to know which one's the best. And it was around that time, after Tim Ferriss in 4-Hour Workweek, he had famously said that, like, oh, he tested it using AdWords. And that wasn't the original title of the book that he was going to use, but it, you know, the ad tested really well, so he went with 4-Hour Workweek. So we saw a lot of similar patterns where authors would come and say like, oh, this was the title I really thought was going to win, but it didn't. And I'm grateful for it. So I'm going to go with the one that won, but it almost always bucked against like what they actually thought. And we've even had some authors that came and we had one of our New York Times bestselling authors, we have a case study on it, where he was testing his book covers, and he was working with a publisher, and they said like, oh, you should use this book cover. And he's like, no, I don't like that. I've got my own idea. So I'm going to put our 2 variations up on PickFu and I'm going to show you. And of course, his lost. And the publisher won. He's like, oh, okay, fine. Like we'll go with your book cover. So that was the first segment that we kind of fell into, and a lot of word of mouth, a lot of influencer marketing. And so from there, we kind of like took this customer-led discovery of like which segments work best. And it was kind of just monitoring how people were using PickFu and figuring out like what the use cases were that made sense to them. And so, the next one was mobile apps, right? Like after authors came like, oh, the mobile games and mobile apps were getting really popular, and people were putting out all these things into the App Store, but they weren't sure, like, is this the right app icon? Like, what App Store screenshots are good? And you definitely can't test that stuff live, or you definitely couldn't before. So we started getting a lot of really big game companies using it because they're very data driven. They're measuring all kinds of analytics in their games, but like this was one aspect that they had no data on. So they started using PickFu to test out in-game creatives, characters that they were thinking about using, definitely the app icons, App Store screenshots, like all of those visual things that they wanted to get feedback on. And so that's still a great segment for us. A little bit more difficult to market into. It's more of a sales cycle. But that's something that we treat those customers really well, the ones that we do get, but we don't spend as much time marketing to.
Yeah. So do you find that there's anything that sets people apart, in terms of those use cases? Do you feel sometimes that you're stretched in terms of the product features that, if we do this, then that plays nicely for these guys, but it's confusing for those guys?
Yeah. Not so much. So we've been able to evolve the product through customer development interviews, and I think most of the features have worked well across all of the segments. I think the pricing and plans is probably the most polarizing thing right now. I think having something that fits a large enterprise and also an individual author is kind of impossible. So that's been a difficult challenge, is just trying to, sit in between all those different worlds.
Do you think you might be leaving some money on the table for those large enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both ways, right? I think with the enterprises, there's definitely more opportunity on the upside, but then we're alienating a lot of the smaller authors and entrepreneurs that kind of, were our initial base and are still great word of mouth referrals. And if they can't even use it because of the price, then it's unfortunate.
Yeah. So you and your co-founder, we haven't mentioned him. I guess it's him. That sounds terrible.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, John.
John, I think you've got a little portfolio of SaaS products under your 2-bit operation, is it? It's called?
Yeah, so we have a portfolio company called 2-bit Operation. Our first company, the one that we were working on when we started PickFu, is called Menuism, and not really a SaaS business. It's more of it's a restaurant review and menu directory in the space of Yelp and City Search and all those things. And we started that back in 2006, self-funded it, and kind of carved out our own niche of organic SEO traffic. And so that one is advertising monetized and continues to run to this day. And so we still manage that. And we have a few other small projects that are always marinating. but PickFu
Nice.
is our focus right now.
So, it sounds like you're a couple of engineers that keep having good ideas and scratching their own itches, and then spinning off products. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're good ideas, but they're ideas that we try to execute on, and we try to stay in the market as long as we can. We
Yeah.
do our best marketing and doing the biz dev and all those things that we should be doing, and then we hire for the things that we're not so good at.
So, what's the competition like for PickFu? Because it's a new idea on me, but I guess there may have been other things around before you guys came out with, sort of parallel creation. People, different groups of people have the same great ideas at similar times.
Yeah.
Is there any competition, or is it pretty much?
Yeah, there's definitely competition. There are other surveying options. There's definitely SurveyMonkey and Google Customer Surveys are the most obvious ones. They both have the option to purchase panel responses. The way we differentiate is we try to have a much simpler flow for both the poll creation and also for the responses that they submit. So you're not doing a 10-question SurveyMonkey on PickFu. It's definitely like quick feedback. We focus on quick feedback and having both that quantitative and qualitative answer. The other competition for similar feedback would probably be running ads. That's still a popular way to get feedback on things. So whether it's Google ads or Facebook ads, a lot of people will put variations up, and you can do this for any kind of creative or marketing copy. The downside would be just that it would cost a lot more to do the same thing, and possibly take a lot longer because it could take a long time for those ad engines to optimize the winner.
Yeah. So I guess one of my questions would be, as a marketer, doing a lot of A/B testing of things, is how do I know that the audience is appropriate or relevant to the thing that I'm offering? Because I guess in a B2C scenario, if it's a book cover or something, then it's probably easier. But the more technical an offering, how do you actually source people that actually going to understand what the thing is, or is it just about the pretty colors?
Yeah, I mean, I think our service is definitely suited better to a B2C product or service. We don't have segmentation by industry or profession right now. So that's why the segments that work really well for us, whether they're books or apps or e-commerce items, like those are all very B2C businesses that we're marketing to. So if you're trying to sell something to physicians, that's probably not great for us. But if you're looking for general feedback, and it's all US based audience, so we're not outsourcing it to India or anything. But we do offer targeting based on general demographics. So it could be like age, gender. It could be by some behavioral stuff. So like whether you are buying nutritional supplements or beauty care products, or you play mobile games. So kind of we've added the demographic information that is interesting to the industries that we're marketing to. Yeah.
I think the thing that interests me about your product, as opposed to, say, Google surveys or SurveyMonkey or whatever, is the that qualitative insight. Because I know from having done surveys as opposed to, say, doing new customer or prospect interviews, like over the phone or whatever, the quality of the information that you get is completely different. And surveys are very much about quantity of data and the direction it's going in. It's the big picture, isn't it? But there's so much value to be had in just those little insights, the little giveaway things that people say.
So we definitely straddle like this weird middle ground of, we want to give you that quantitative data, and sometimes if you order 500, it could be difficult to then read through 500 explanations. But what's another cool feature that we have is that we have these follow-up questions. So like, say you're reading through all the explanations and you're like, oh, that's a really interesting point that guy had. Like, I want to know more. So you can actually ask a follow-up question that will go directly back to that person.
Oh, cool.
And you can have a one-on-one dialogue with like any of the respondents in their poll results. So like that really turns it into like a mini online focus group, and you're able to dive deep into the ones that are engaging with your question.
I can't believe I haven't heard of you before.
It's a marketing issue.
Yeah, I've needed a tool like this probably 5 times in the last few months. So.
Yeah, I mean, what's great is that, you know, we use it a ton internally, and when we see some of our customers really understand the full power of it, like it's really interesting to see how they're using it day to day, and they're discovering new use cases for it. And really, it's like I said before, like it's very customer driven and figuring out like how the tool is useful, which way it should go, and how we should market it, because, you know, it's a blank canvas in terms of what it can do, and there's a lot of interesting things that you can test. So
I think quite a lot of our listeners are SaaS marketers or like startup founders. And I think you've put together a little coupon code or something for these guys.
Yeah, so if they want to use the coupon code SaaS marketing, that's SaaS with 2 A's, obviously. That'll get them 50% off their first poll.
Wow.
And you know, it could be as large of a poll as they want, but yeah, it'll give you 50% off and help them test it out and figure out new use cases for us.
Thanks for that. I think I'm going to be using it.
Yeah, for sure.
So with just, you know, 2 of you running effectively 3 businesses, how do you manage the time?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of outsourcing that goes on. We contract with people to do different things for all of the different businesses. Work-life balance was difficult in the beginning. I would say like the first few years were basically no sleep, we're just working all the time. But now we're both married and have kids, and there's a lot more balance. I think breaking up the day for me is very useful. So like I wake up and I take the kids to school, I get their lunches ready and everything, but then I get out of the house, and I always like to start my day at a coffee shop. I find it to be like much more productive to be like not at home, basically. So you know, I do a couple hours there, and I find that once I get into this productive mode at a coffee shop, like I can carry on throughout the day. And then I just have a really good, you know, mobile setup with, you know, hotspotting, and I work from almost anywhere. So as I drive the kids around, like I'm just working from different locations, staying productive that way. Managing the different businesses kind of goes in sprints,
Right.
Based off interest, and that's kind of how we ended up with so many businesses, anyways. Was, you know, it's like, oh, this is really interesting, and you know, the passion is high, then, you know, go for it. And that's kind of the way we still do things. So you know, if something comes up with one of the other businesses and we need to dedicate some time to it, then we'll sprint at it, get it done, and then kind of shift back. But sometimes we find that having multiple things to manage actually increases productivity, right? Because it forces you to prioritize things, and it forces you to time box and bucket them. If you're just kind of working on one thing forever, then it's easy to let things drag. So being able to juggle things and keep your mind fresh is kind of nice.
Justin, thank you so much for the insight into PickFu and how you run and market that business and the success you've had. As I said, you know, I think it's a great business in terms of you know, for founders or all marketers who are looking to validate stuff early on without spending a fortune and getting some good feedback. So I'm really pleased to have come across you and PickFu, and yeah, I think I'm going to have a play with it in the next week or so.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Paul.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Justin. For more info on PickFu, please visit www.pickfu.com. For more info about this show, and to get our links to iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, check out www.47insights.com. And if you have any SaaS marketing insights that you'd like to share on the show, please get in touch. Until next time.